like I promised, we'll get at least a couple of fixed bands coming up here for Cy Curnin before the top of the hour on Coast to Coast, and then it's Marjorie Wildcraft next hour on the conversation of self-sustaining farming and all of the things that she's worked out in DVD that you can find out more about if you click onto our website at coasttocoastam.com. You can also find out more about Cy Curnin. Let me ask you, Cy, about this tour coming up. You are going to be coming back to the United States. You're going to be playing at a couple of select dates, but with a pretty cool roster of people.
That's right, yeah. I've got a show up in Aspen on April 2nd. It's the John Oates kind of Songwriters in the Round series that he does. I think there's Sean Colvin and Glenn Tilbrook from Squeeze will be joining me, and Miles from the Fastball, and a few other guys that I can't quite remember right now, but it should be a fun thing. And I'll be there talking up Love, Hope, Strength as well. They're just down the road. The headquarters is just down the road in Denver, so they'll be there in full. And they're trying to get their bone marrow campaign really in front of the greater public, so we can get that rolling.
Talk about that cancer charity a little bit more, so just so people know what you're up to.
Yeah, it's called Love, Hope, Strength. It's started by Mike Peters, who is a guy that's been fighting with leukemia for a few years. He couldn't get rock and roll insurance to come and tour once they found out he had leukemia. And he found a rock and roll insurer called James Chippendale in the States, who also was a leukemia survivor. He'd had the harder case where he'd had to have a full bone marrow transplant, and the two of them took that as a sign that they should do something to alert the world to the disease and get early detection machines in place in countries that they can't afford even a loaf of bread, stuff like that. So let's go and sing the message from the highest points on the globe, said Mike. So off we went to Everest and I did a concert at close to 19,000 feet at the top of Kalapatar, and it was the most incredible experience of my life. And indeed everyone else that was there were 38 people, cancer survivors, musicians, sponsors, a whole gamut of people, and we all went up there and we all left something up there. And I think it was the kind of weight of excuse that your life is just you just got to live in society without being able to help in any way. So we kind of just went up there and came back free.
Would you leave?
And then we've been to Kilimanjaro since, and Machu Picchu.
Yeah, you can't say that one.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Shoveling it for so long, I thought it was part of the Lexington list there.
Yeah, I understand. But and they may perhaps use that in the sustainable farming of the FCC, but we wouldn't have it on the air.
Oh, excuse me.
That's okay. Jesse, I'm assuming we're good with that. Okay. So that was good. So when the things that you left up there are things that you were carrying around, other than say, a tin soldier or something from your pocket.
Exactly. Well, we left a lot of prayer flags with the names of people that had died of cancer, loved ones, and they were there just passing the names into the wind. And these prayer flags just, with the wind, just dissolve into the air eventually, and the names just go off into the spirit world, I suppose. So it was a beautiful symbol. And a lot of people setting free. And I think, for some of the cancer survivors, they live in fear every day that cancer is going to come back. And then they are embarking on a huge journey for them. They're physically just not sure if they're strong enough, and then they're dealing with the altitude, and you get a lot of people vomiting and headaches, stuff like that. But they made it to the top, and that sort of Damocles just disappeared, and they were no longer survivors. They were actually living again. And that to me was the richest gift.
Sure, that's great.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's a good way of looking at how one way we can fix things. But how about a reference to some people said the fix was a reference to the band's drug habits. I remember that. I'm sure you've heard that rumor at the time. Oh yeah, the fix. These are guys. Either the rumor I heard was, or maybe it's just a story, but that you all were recovering drug addicts and this was your new fix, but that the fix had a reference to getting a fix.
Yeah, it was just from our point of view, it's just a reference to your focus. What are you going to set your sights on? What was going to be our you know, this name, the Fix, it has a lot of drug connotations. Let's put another X on it, and people won't think that anymore.
No, that's interesting.
And I said, well, it sounds the same, so I didn't really care. You know, in a way, it kind of graphically works, and I see a lot of people have started putting double X's on the end of their names too now. So I said, okay, great, we started something there.
And yet, if you'd put a third X on it, everybody would have thought it was porn.
Yeah, there you go.
You found just the right number of X's.
That's it, yeah.
All right, we'll get to a couple of calls for Cy Curnin here in just a second. Let me ask you about that one question I'm going to throw out at Marjorie Wildcraft, the woman who is an advocate and a teacher, an instructor on self-sustaining farming. She answers the question, do you need a gun to garden? So I throw it out at you. Is that something in France? I know that their gun laws are much different than they are in the United States anyway. But is that something that ever comes up?
Yeah, it is actually. I mean, the hunting laws are quite liberal over there. You have a permit and you can go and hunt pheasant, rabbit, wild boar, deer, pretty much the same as you can here. And you know, if you're rearing your own meat, it's nice to eat a little bit of wild game now and then. But I think the connotation of the question therein lies is that if you're running a small holding and the system breaks down and there are a lot of hungry people roaming around out there and they start to come and steal your food, are you going to be able to protect yourself and your family with one gun?
Yes.
A horde of starving people. I don't think you can. You could probably pop one or two warning shots off, but I think it's probably better to just open a soup kitchen and just try and feed as many people, get them on your side, and then they can defend you.
Wouldn't that be nice? Good. Well, I like the sound of that. We'll see what... I have a feeling I know what her answer is, and we'll get to that coming up on Coast to Coast. You want to talk to some fans?
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. Well, this is Steve from Houston for Cy Curnin of The Fix on Coast to Coast. Steve?
Yeah, good evening, gentlemen. Evening, Steve. Hey, giant fan of you guys, both of you, actually. And listening to your music over the years, there's a saying that all great art works on multiple levels. And when I was much younger in the 80s, listening to the band's music, it was all great, sounded good. And then as I've matured and developed spiritually, the lyrics take on a very different meaning, and it works even better than it did before. And so one of the things I'm wondering is, like in Secret Separation, obviously there's a lot of reincarnation overtones to it.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on reincarnation, and is this something that progressed with the development of the band, or did you have these ideas before the band started?
Well, and they kind of were just ideas that I was toying with throughout my life, and that, you know, from reading books, you're exposed to different experiences through other people's words. Just from the basic system is you're put in the ground, your body rots, but it feeds new life. So there's a kind of obvious form of reincarnation there. If you happen to believe that your spirit then goes through various stages in order to come back to learn more lessons, come back to learn more lessons, come back to learn more lessons, and eventually you've learnt all the lessons that are to be learnt on this planet, and then you will just become light. Some people have put forward that theory. I found that a very charming way to live through the illusions of just the blackness.
And the blackness refers to?
Just nihilism and nothing.
Had you gone through that? Did you experience that in your life?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have just periods where you doubt so much, and you believe and you believe, and you're asking for signs, and they don't come, and you just momentarily give up hope, but not for long. I must say that I've been quite lucky that hope always comes along over the hill and saves me.
Love that. We have Jeff in Elk, California for Cy Curnin on Coast to Coast. Jeff?
Hi, Ian, and Cy, I promise I won't mention anything that comes out of an elk. And,
thank you.
I had the privilege of providing T-shirts to the Fix in 1989 when they played at the University of Redlands in California, what we called X